With entries like A Way Out and It Takes Two, Hazelight have cemented themselves as the co-op masters. I don't think anyone would argue that they have got this formula down to an exact science at this point. Their newest release, Split Fiction, is a game that very much falls into their co-op wheelhouse, but does it rise to the very high quality bar that these previous entries have set? What's up? How's it going, people? Welcome to Casual Gamer Reviews. If you want to see more content like this, please hit the like and subscribe. It took us 16 hours to roll credits, reviewed on Xbox Series X. Split Fiction is entirely a co-op game. You cannot play it single player. This can either be couch co-op or with another player online. Hazelight have kept the same tradition set with It Takes Two, where only one player has to own the game, meaning you can play with any of your friends with a single copy. A very generous move in an ever-growing selfish world. A world very much like the story of Split Fiction, which I will get into later. There is no simple way to pigeonhole the gameplay. In traditional Hazelight fashion, you and your partner will experience sections that will encompass most gaming genres. You have a foundation that the game builds around. This is the double jump, the dodge, and the grapple, very much like It Takes Two. Split Fiction gets its title from the world being split between two realities, fantasy and sci-fi. The main levels will rotate between these two realities, and each world comes with its own mechanics. You could be fighting with katanas and gravity guns 1 minute, and then flying on dragons the next. This constant switch up in mechanics is what keeps this game so incredibly fresh and exciting. New to this adventure and a catalyst for this fresh and exciting gameplay is the side stories. Side stories are optional experiences you can find naturally during the course of the story and will transport you into a new world with new mechanics. These are all bite-sized, which just adds to the exhilaration of the speedy chopping and changing of styles. In these side stories, we played as pigs, we played as teeth, we played a 2025 version of Wave Race, we rode sand sharks, we played an exploding bomb game show, we played as drawings in a notebook, we skydived into a Mission Impossible style train chase, and so much more. These were easily the standout sections, and each and every one of them was tons of fun. There is a lot of variation with the main levels as well. As I mentioned earlier, each new level will bring new mechanics, but within the levels themselves you will have to do different things to progress. Sometimes you could be playing a 2D platforming section, the next you could be flying through tight environments. Sometimes you could be running and gunning, and others you could be hacking and slashing. Your expectations for Split Fiction should be, well, everything, because honestly you will probably be playing in pretty much any style that comes to mind. Then there's the boss fights, something this game does not shy away from. These battles are excellently well designed and engaging. Each of them demands something different from either player. These enemies cannot be defeated if both players are not doing their part. One player may need to weaken so the other can damage, or sometimes you could be playing on completely different planes. What I mean by this is one of you could literally be inside of the enemy whilst the other is fighting on the outside. It really is incredible to see some of the variety that the devs explore with these boss fights. I will mention here though that we personally found a lot of these more challenging than It Takes Two, and my partner did struggle in some sections, so bear this in mind if you're playing with someone who is not a regular gamer or perhaps a younger person. Split Fiction isn't the highest in fidelity, but it is a very pretty game. The characters are animated well in all of their endeavors, especially with the constant movement. The game runs in a smooth 60 FPS on console, and it really is essential for a game this fast paced. The main characters Mio and Zoe were both well designed, and the facial animations with the lip sync was very clean. The environments are what will be memorable to most though. The constant switch between sci-fi and fantasy means a constant switch in environments and also costume changes. I personally preferred the look of the sci-fi worlds, which were very cyberpunk for the most part. I'm a fan of the Blade Runner chic with all the neon lights. You also get to see the inside of a prison spaceship and the guts of a space factory. The fantasy worlds were great too, don't get me wrong. There were lots of lush green landscapes and rivers, but the best one for me was the Dragonland with the temples and castle. The thing I want to talk about most with the visuals is the thing I unfortunately can't talk about, as it would completely ruin the surprise. This game ends in such an extraordinary way that you will physically gasp at what you are seeing, because I definitely did. As the game runs in a split screen fashion, it can sometimes be a bit difficult to admire the views, but there are a few benches scattered around in the levels where you and your partner can take a break. Doing so will cause the screen to merge, and you can both enjoy the landscape presented before you. The soundtrack is completely composed by Gustav Grefberg and Jonathan Yarphag. Gustav returns again after doing all of Hazelight's catalogue, as well as Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, amongst other things. The music itself is very much what you would expect and was nothing too standout. It has electronic beats in the sci-fi sections and orchestral beats in the fantasy sections. We all know that fantasy and wind instruments go hand in hand, right? The music would ramp up in boss fights, and some of the sci-fi ones specifically stick in my head as they would go full heavy techno, which took me back a decade or so to reminisce about the clubs in Berlin. Mio and Zoe are voiced by Kaja Chan and Elsie Bennett respectively, who both have a handful of video games under their belts. Now, their voice work was great, no complaints there, but some of the dialogue was extremely cheesy. Now trust me, I'm a super cheesy guy and I love that kind of humor, but even I was cringing at certain points in this game. For me, that was something I could easily overlook and not let it tarnish the game, but I know for some people this may be a little harder to ignore. Tired of corporations trying to fuck you over and steal your ideas? Worried that art and anything creative may be replaced by AI? A dystopian reality we would see in films 20 years ago, but a reality we find ourselves living today. Split Fiction has this situation at its core. Mio and Zoe are both writers who are unpublished and find themselves in a weird corpo experiment machine where they effectively absorb the ideas out of your head. Some unfortunate consequences align that mean the girls end up in the same pod and they must try and escape. There is only one way to do this, and that is to play through their stories in a simulation style backdrop. Think Tron or the Animus from Assassin's Creed. The story is not groundbreaking, but it doesn't need to be. It very much exists as a vehicle for the game to progress in its own exciting way whilst also making sense. You will not be playing the game for its story, but you also won't really care as you'll be having so much fun anyway. It does try to have some emotional beats like we have seen in previous Hazelight titles, which would have hit harder if not so painfully predictable. But I did enjoy the blossoming friendship between the two leads. Split Fiction ditches the head-to-head mini-games that we saw in It Takes Two in favour of the side stories which I spoke about earlier. Whilst I think the side stories are far better than the mini-games, I did miss the head-to-head rivalry. Outside of this, there is not really any side content as there are no collectibles to note, but I would say that there is replayability here as there is enough differentiation between the two characters to want to experience the other side on a second run. Split Fiction is a reality-bending experience with phenomenal gameplay and proof that Hazelight just can't miss with their output. It is fast-paced, exciting, exquisitely fresh, and just a damn good time. It is very accessible for gamers of all experiences, and with the friend pass wiping out the barriers to entry, there really is no reason not to play this. It has some minor holdbacks with its story and dialogue, but this could not do much to dampen the flames of this fiery co-op masterpiece. Split Fiction gets a casual gamer score of 9 out of 10. Check out my channel for more reviews, spoilercasts and discussions. I have just uploaded reviews for South of Midnight and Atomfall, so go give those a watch. Let me know in the comments below if you are wanting to play Split Fiction or what you think of it if you have. Please don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button, and for everything casual gamer, keep it here. Peace and love.